On this, the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we watched in New York this morning as the United States at the United Nations stood firmly on the same side as the Kremlin against a resolution calling out Moscow's aggression and demanding an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops. At the same time, in Washington and the East Room at the White House, we watched as a delicate new reality of American relations with European allies was on full display as President Trump welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron, and the attempts to be friendly were juxtaposed by an extraordinary moment in the Oval Office when the French president fact-checked the U.S. president in real time.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the U.S., loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear, we have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loaned at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President,
if they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But, you know, that's only fair.
My next source has represented the U.S. at the United Nations and also been in the room with Trump and Putin at the same time when he was the national security advisor. The former ambassador, John Bolton, joins me now. And Ambassador, I mean, you could see Trump's face in that moment as the French president was saying that they're not getting paid back for the money that they provided to Ukraine. He also said, though, next to him, that made a point of saying Russia is the aggressor. What did you make of that exchange?
Well, I think it's Macron trying to maintain his own position without pushing Trump over the edge and losing any chance of bringing Trump back to reality. I don't think that Macron will succeed. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, is coming this week as well. I don't think he'll succeed. I think we are now close to as close to Russia as an ally we've ever been in a hostile environment. It's a huge embarrassment. But I think most significant of all is that vote in the UN today was a clear marker. We are on the path out of NATO. Trump has already done enormous damage to the NATO alliance. Almost every time he talks about Ukraine, he does more. But that vote, with all of our allies on one side supporting Ukraine and condemning Russia's unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, with us on the side of Russia and North Korea and countries like that, that shows the NATO alliance is badly split already. And it's at this point, you take too many more steps like that, the actual withdrawal is just a formality.
Did you ever think you'd see a vote like that did put the U.S. on the same side as Russia, North Korea, Belarus, I mean, all these other Moscow-friendly nations?
Well, there are a lot of strange votes at the United Nations that I've participated in. It wasn't so much the vote itself as the fact we are aligned with what has always been NATO's principal threat. There have been other threats. We benefited from the alliance when al-Qaeda attacked us on September the 11th. But I would say 95% plus of NATO's planning during the Cold War and since then has been concerned about a Russian attack. That is the fundamental motivating factor why the alliance was created and why it still exists today. And we have sided now in this vote with NATO's principal adversary. It's just unthinkable that a president could do that.
Do you believe when Trump would not call Putin a dictator earlier, is that a negotiating strategy, or do you think he just doesn't think he is one?
Look, Trump's defenders say everything he says is a negotiating strategy, including when he says A and the next day says not A. It's all just a negotiating strategy. I think it's an indication his mind is full of mush, and he says whatever comes into it. He believes Vladimir Putin is his friend. And, you know, you don't call your friends dictators. He doesn't like Volodymyr Zelenskiy. He hasn't liked him since the perfect phone call of the summer of 2018. So it's no sweat off his back to go ahead and call Zelensky a dictator. This is somebody who is not fit to be president. He can't tell America's friends from its enemies.
On that note, he obviously is the president and is the commander-in-chief. And on Friday, he fired the Joint Chiefs chairman, General C.Q. Brown, and instead said that he wants to replace him with a retired three-star Air Force general. His name is Dan Kane. They met in Iraq 6 years ago when Trump was last in office. You were actually there on that visit and write about this in your book. Is the way that Trump portrays that relationship, because he does talk about him a lot, is it what you witnessed?
Absolutely not. Trump has made up events that didn't happen. We were on the ground in Iraq, I don't know, maybe 3 hours total. And I was either with Trump every minute of that time on the ground, or on one occasion when he and Mrs. Trump went off to meet some of the service members there, I was actually with Kane and General LaCamera, who was the overall commander, as we were writing up the press release about what happened in the meeting. So there was no chance that Trump had a conversation with General Kane that bore any resemblance to what he's described. I never saw Kane wear a MAGA hat. The president addressed the service members there at the El Asad base. Got a very enthusiastic welcome. A lot of young men and women seeing their commander-in-chief. Really a very inspiring thing. I didn't see any MAGA hats in that crowd either, because most of them were in uniform. They're in a base in a hostile environment. And you don't wear, civilian accessories when you're dressed in uniform. And one of the commanders could not have done that and ever expected to get any respect from his subordinates when they did that. So I didn't see it. I don't believe it. And I think it's standard Trump. He makes up the world as he wants it to be, and then his followers, unfortunately, believe him.